Hello everyone and welcome back to the Wicked Weekly. My name is Brian if you're new around here, and if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And we're also going to be trying out a new format here in today's video. I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your feedback on the style, and we'll just go from there as we're all in the waiting room until March the 11th. That is when the Wicked Inside kicks off. That is really when we're going to start to see the floodgates of information opening. But I figured I'd talk about that. I'd talk about the potential release for this next major update because I've seen some speculation online and in the Discord, and roughly speaking, we're going to be thinking update time around the end of March, early April, which is April is also the anniversary of this game launching in early access. So thankfully we don't have too much long to wait, but for all of us who've been in the waiting room, for all of us waiting for that next major milestone for this game, well, we still have to wait a little bit longer. The good news is there's lots of really great games to play and a couple of real big duds, and I'd like to talk to you guys today about that in this video. So we're gonna do like we do, with other metrics and tracking and reporting. We're gonna talk about Avowed, early access numbers, really what we could be looking for here also in today's video. So welcome in, guys. If you like this kind of content, if you like the style, that like button is a great way of helping out the channel. But outside that, let's dive in. While there hasn't been monumental news coming out of the Discord, namely because you want to build up that excitement, you want to make sure you save the big reveals for your big marketing push, which kicks off again March the 11th. We will be live covering that. I have requested that day off work, so we will have a fun time to discuss everything Wicked here at the channel. But it's interesting is because while Thomas did do a group chat session over on Discord, talked a lot about PvP, we're going to go over some of the questions and suggestions that came out of this conversation. It is important to note that PvP isn't going to be the big draw for a lot of players. I think it's an important feature. I enjoy PvP personally, but when you look at the numbers and you break it down, they are not what people are going to be looking for as their primary reason for play for the most part. There's going to be exceptions. There are going to be people who are going to just absolutely love the PvP in this game, but it's important to note that even though they have a bunch of people, especially who love the Souls game, as Thomas says, even internally, we have lots of Souls fans at Moon, but only 2 of them have actually played a Souls PvP for hundreds of hours. And the hundreds of hours is kind of the key kicker. People are going to try it out, see if it's for them. And if it ends up being what they talk about, and for those of you who haven't been keeping score at home, or maybe we haven't talked PvP in a while, it's first and foremost a fighting game is what they're trying to build within their Souls-like action RPG. I, for one, am excited about that fact, but if we're all going to put brass tacks and that honest conversation on the line here, when you try to be the game for everybody, it's easy to miss on that goal. But this is Moon Studios we're talking about here, and the team in and of themselves already, I think, have a solid foundation. So I, for one, am rooting for PvP. I, for one, am rooting for PvE. Whether you like one or don't like the other, honestly, I think it's going to be interesting to see how people and how they rally around this game. What really draws them to No Rest for the Wicked? Is it the story? Is it the multiplayer? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, what is it that actually attracts you the most to this game? What is it going to have you coming back week over week, month over month? Yeah, there's no wrong answer. I'm just curious about your thoughts. But here's what actually boiled out in terms of feedback and questions that came from this live session. Wondering if the devs are going to change how you buy the Serum armor in the game. If you're curious about how you're going to actually handle, how are the devs going to handle item duping in the game, that's a real critical one when it comes to multiplayer and economies as well. They think it's a silly question, Marty asked, but will character creator have more customization? This is actually why, he prefaced it with silly question, but this is important for a lot of people. It's not for me. Like, I'm not that isn't the reason why I play games, but I know a lot of gamers who spend hundreds of hours in the character creator alone. So I don't think it's a silly question. I think it's a pretty standard question for at least what I see within online RPGs. Luminous asks, will the update on fast travel teleports allow us to go everywhere, not just only back and forth? And Thomas has talked about that specifically before. Namely, like, they want for you to unlock faster ways to get around, but yes, they will open up teleporting to maybe a handful. We'll have to see how it's ultimately implemented. I think if they do open it up, there needs to be a cost to it. Otherwise, if there's not a cost to it, then well, your people are just going to teleport all around and you kind of lose the mystery and the magic of the world. It's also going to be interesting to see how the plague system plays into it, because I could see a potential solution where they let you teleport to certain places that have been cleared out and are not currently infected with the plague, for example. And as the plague comes in, you lose access to the teleports, thus you want to go get them back. Time will tell if I'm right. Dorian says, I would love to see more construction themes in the game. And they were wondering if the game is going to develop in that direction. Pulsar says, could there be a way for passionate players to be able to earn a way to work with various different items? Real Mr. Fox says, will there be a 1.0 release party? If so, will it be in person or Zoom or both? You know, this reminds me though, when Thomas talked about having a kind of a wicked, conference, a wicked con or something like that in the past. If the game does well enough and is big enough and has the fan support, as they build out this magnum opus, that's going to be really cool to see, because if that is the case, that's something that I'm going to have to get myself to. I love hanging out with gamers and talking video games, and who knows, maybe that's where they would announce 2.0, the sequel to this game. That would be very exciting. But if that ends up being an opportunity, note that we will be covering it and talking about it and hopefully attending it as well. Then we have a couple of questions about multiplayer and after launch, what's the content plan, which they're going to keep working on over time. But Starfire with the most important question, if nothing else, as a fellow balding man, why is Thomas such a handsome devil? Oh, I know it's not directed at me, but you know what? I'll take it. Now that wraps up the kind of the news portion of the Wicked Weekly. We'll be back, covering any kind of news and breaking information and discussion that will occur each and every week. So if you guys enjoy the content, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. I'm sure I'm going to piss you off because I am not short on sharing my opinions, especially about what is all going on in gaming, but we'll talk a little bit more about that here later in the video. But before we get into the Avowed discussion, Thomas is sharing a couple tweets over on Twitter. I thought it'd be really good to kind of highlight those, especially in terms of discussion, in terms of what is the thought process of this guy who is making this incredible freaking game. He says, every single time I talk to people who just started out making games after only being players, journalists, producers, without fail, the most immediate learning is, oh my goodness, I didn't know that this was so much work. And all he can think of is no pain and no gain. Going on to say that he's been through a lot of crazy things with potential talent over the years. I find this interesting, and as everybody I've talked to, the reason why I got into develop myself was because of my love of games. This is something interesting, and it's a good thing for thought, especially if you're out there looking for work. He goes, the weirdest one that was one time we went through the various different interviews with someone and liked his portfolio, and we asked him to give us his personal details so we could set up a contract with him, and suddenly the moon changed and we got a lecture on why it's totally inappropriate to ask for one's personal details, like your address. I've seen a lot of stuff like this recently. Looking back over the past couple of years, feels like the outrage and anxiety has definitely come down again. People are willing to work with you and are probably not out to get you. So remember, if you apply at a job at some place, bring your best manners. Be nice to the person that people would enjoy dealing with on a day-to-day basis, because I guarantee it doesn't matter how potentially talented you are. If you even show a whiff of being a pain in the ass, you're not getting the gig. Ain't nobody got time for that. And speaking of changes in the industry, we're seeing an interesting drop in engineers across the board. Software development jobs posting has gone down massively over the course of the last 5 years, and Thomas highlights this. It's interesting. This seems to be what I also kind of see going on. A lot of interest in software development, remote work, but that has tempered off a little bit. If you're looking to get into development, you can always jump into the Discord. Love to help you out. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I absolutely love it. It is addictive. And it allows me to provide for my family, so that's great. And then, if anybody's wondering and you're stuck here and you're wondering what's going on with Rudolph right now, just note that I use Breathe Right nose strips at night, which helps just me sleep even better. I don't have sleep apnea, but that one little change has been huge. I got a new set of them, and they're kind of rubbing on the skin, so I think I'm gonna have to let my nose heal up a little bit. But I'm a little bit Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer here, so it's fitting with, I guess, the channel Ginger Prime whole theme. But now let's go ahead and jump into our discussion about Avowed. Now, for me, I made a video a couple of months ago talking about all the drama surrounding this game and wondering, will Game Pass save it? And that is actually going to be the biggest question, because right now, based off the numbers in early access, they are not great, and it can lead to a couple of different conclusions. We'll go in more detail about it when I make the full video going over when the game is fully released, looking at the Game Pass effect, looking at the actual player numbers. But you can see here for early access, this points to a couple of things. One, gamers might be tired of premium early access, which I think would be a really healthy thing. But the other thing is you also have people who are like, I've already got Game Pass, I might as well wait. And then you also have the drama that they kicked up. So the question that we will hopefully get an answer to within the next 7 days is Avowed, is the wokeness, is that leftist mindset, is that old strategy going to play off for them if they've made a really good game, which it is either a good game or it's not. We'll know how the astroturfing goes, but if you guys have been following it, tons of issues, lots of problems with this game overall. And I see a couple people looking at, hey, it's the number 5 in top sellers. Against what? Like, that's actually kind of a real bad sign. So when we look at these numbers, you're going to see a massive drop off in Twitch because people are going to always, they're going to evaluate if they want the game or not. Then they're going to move on with their lives. But these numbers in themselves do not paint a good picture. And I'm also, for those of you who don't know, like, my numbers aren't just based off a Steam database. I go into all of how I calculate, and every time so far I've been accurate. And it's, it's awesome because it's a lot of fun, but it also opens up plenty of opportunity to people to call me an idiot. But it's always fun because I'm like, all right, let's just fast forward a couple months. Turns out I was right again. Oh, well. This is all fun and games, guys. I love breaking it down without the drama, without the nonsense. What do the pure numbers look like, and what can we learn from them, especially as gamers, but as an industry? What do we, how are we going to see this project itself into the future? What changes do we see coming out of this? And we've already seen them patch the game in response to some of the backlash that they faced last year. Now, I wouldn't write Avowed off just yet. Game Pass is a real big seller, but just to speak on that personally, if I didn't have as many kids as I did, honestly, I'm getting to the point where I would cancel Game Pass. Now, Game Pass with me and the kids and all the games that we like to play together is a real good value. But the more I think of it in terms of just myself, playing anywhere, being able to buy that game and play wherever I want is actually a bigger sell, and Game Pass less so. But maybe that's also due to subscription fatigue. I don't know why I'm struggling with that word. Love to hear your thoughts, especially about that, because I know that I've been a big supporter of Game Pass well into the last 5 years. It's been really good value to me. That the value is actually diminishing, and what will be interesting with the Avowed conversation is, do we see it actually have a negative impact on Game Pass? There's not going to be another Call of Duty for another 9 months. It's going to be a real interesting 2025 to see how Xbox either changes, doubles down, or what is to come next with their next console. And now, like, I like to wrap up my videos with the message of hope. This is inspired, and this is going to be a kind of a real adult conversation for those of you who don't know, but this is inspired by a comment here from Nicholas, who writes, "Great video, Ginger. One question, if you don't mind answering it. Why is it that sexuality in general is a no-go zone for you in video games, but violence isn't?" And like I said, guys, this is going to be me just, we talk about the real world here. We talk about my struggles, and hopefully to help inspire you to be the best version of yourself, especially if you're struggling with mental health issues, depression. These are things that you're not alone. Everybody here, we all do it, but it's not something that a lot of people like to brag about. But anyway, I'm going to talk about this specific topic, and for those of you in the room, you feel free to head out of the video, but this is going to get real adult really quick. All right. First and foremost, I have a joke that I do in my stand-up that is basically a very simple kind of bit. It's like, if anybody who's ever said that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, those people have clearly never masturbated more than 4 times in one day. That is hard. And that's one of the things that, for me, again, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I don't think that actually works in terms of it. But I'm going to tell you how I choose to kind of live my life. And there are some real struggles that I had. I was massively addicted to masturbation as a kid. and into my young adult life. And so much so that like I think of it like a drug. Like, do I watch porn? Absolutely not. Porn in my mind is the fentanyl of the mind and the soul. It is a drug. It will kill you. It can ruin so many things in your life, but it's so easy to kind of get lulled into that. Now, when I was addicted to this, I know guys would sit down and say like, I'd hear talks and like, oh, people would say they don't struggle with it or they don't masturbate. And I'm like, it'd make me angry. Like, cause I'm like, you're a liar at this point. Like, I don't believe you. And that's how like lost I was. Now for me, my story is deeply miraculous. God came into my life and cured me of it. Now, I was a practicing Catholic at the time. Like, I definitely believed, and that's one of the things I had to repeatedly go to confession about. And it was in and of itself such a habit. It was such a, just this addiction that it was this cycle that felt never ending. And actually, 15 years ago, to pretty much the day, God cured me of this. He came into my life, and all of a sudden it was gone. Now, that story is kind of weird, crazy, and maybe I'll share it with you guys if you already haven't heard it when we've been doing live streams in the past. But it was a relief, because like I literally could not. There's nothing I could do. I tried everything under the sun to stop that. To stop that self-abuse in this case. And over time, the temptations came back, but like literally had no interest. Literally had like no desire for it. I was really concerned about bringing this into my marriage, because this year Julie and I celebrate 15 years of marriage, which is wonderful. And I have jokes about all of this, by the way, that are not anywhere near appropriate. Like that, I think the joke I opened this whole talk with, much safer. But I do have a lot of humor like around this, because I think about it in many different ways. But crudeness aside and comedy aside, the idea here is that I truly resonate with guys who struggle with this. And how do I contort myself? Well, I don't engage in that kind of sexuality stuff. I don't think prone to violence. Like, I know that instinctually we all have violent tendencies, but through cognitive behavior therapy and those things, I've been able to really kind of help manage kind of the anger that I definitely have struggled with anger in the past, and it's been helped me out a lot to manage that. But sexuality is something different. It's like, I don't also have cereal and grapes in my house, because from a dietary perspective, those are foods that I don't seem to have the ability, despite the fact that I can say no to myself. I live a highly disciplined life. There are some areas that are just no-go zones. And for me, that's how I identify it. This isn't me telling you that you should follow my example, namely because maybe these things aren't struggles for you. And if that's the case, thank goodness. Like, that's a real gift. But just like, I look at people who have gambling addiction and alcohol addiction, like, I'm so thankful that I don't have that, but I know who I am and I know where my weakness is, and I don't want to do that, namely for my marriage, but also for myself. And, it isn't, it doesn't replace the real thing. And that is, I think, really critical. So I didn't want to bring that into my marriage. And that's why I don't consume those kind of products. And I don't go and shame and, blast anybody online. I know the whole Gamergate, Goonergate thing is going on right now, and that is, its own thing, and will continue to be its own thing. But this is how I choose to live. I think it ends up being a better thing. It's hard. The temptation, like I said, did come back, but avoiding that is actually much easier because I've been able to break that habit. That's why, again, I think of it as a drug, than anything else. So anyway, hopefully this gives you guys something to think about. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're welcome to share privately if you want. Like, I know this is a deep subject, and yeah, maybe we'll continue talking about it as we delve into 2025. I really appreciate you guys hanging out if you made it all the way to the end of the video. But outside of that, guys, I wish you guys all the very best. God bless you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.